Hello, everyone. This is the Mental Health Collective Talking Rubbish podcast. This is episode 5 with the incredibly talented freelance designer and digital artist, Stefan Große Halbuer. Welcome. Hello, everyone. This is the
Hey guys, nice to be here. Just a second, I have to switch my video audio off. So you probably just heard yourself through my speakers.
I'm crying. I'm cringing so bad.
Yeah,
I'm so glad that it was Mensa's voice and not mine.
Yeah, I was just about to share the spaces in the chat, and yeah, well, things did their thing.
I did want to ask you a few questions. So as we spoke a little earlier briefly about how a little bit about us, you know about us, and we know a little bit about you, and we love your art. Your art is so cool. It's, a lot of ways it's nostalgic, but it's also new and modern in a way too. And I'm also just a big fan of purple. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about technology, but I think the first question needs to be, do you want to share a little bit about who you are and what your art is?
Yes, absolutely, sure. And then we can head over to all the questions about the color purple and whatnot. So yeah, I'm Stefan. I'm a designer and digital artist from Münster in Germany. And I am a creative freelancer for around 10 years now. I studied communication design here in Münster at the Münster School of Design. It is an interdisciplinary school where you can study like classic graphic design, which is kind of communication design is kind of the classic graphic design direction we have in Germany. It's just called like that. And then we have like product design and also illustration. And I kind of fell in love with drawing and making art. And yeah, in the last 10 years have been working freelance for lots of brands, startups, also NGOs and clients from the cultural direction, editorial gigs, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm very happy that my art is kind of taken very well by everyone, and that people want me to have working on their brand illustration and stuff like that, and also editorial, something I really love to do as well. And yeah, and I'm in the NFT space since I'm following along what's happening here since around mid 2020. I'm investing small scale in crypto since 2016. So I'm following along the crypto space for a while now. And now I am, I've been looking at what some artists did in 2020 and then started minting my own pieces in 2021. I think in February or March 21, I minted my first NFTs. And here we are. It's been 1.5 years, and that felt like 5 years or so, maybe, or maybe even 10. It's crazy what happened in the last month, right? So, everyone is saying the same. I'm just repeating what everyone is saying here because it's so crazy what we have experienced. Have dropped some crazy projects. Been working really, really hard. I'm kind of really definitely workaholic, so I'm always working on some projects. And here we are. Should I explain what kind of characterizes my art, or I think we probably get to that, right?
If you'd like, I did want to share though that today is my 8-month anniversary in the Twitter NFT Web3 space. So I totally agree with you that it's like time just feels different here, right? You've been here since 2016, and then you've kind of been watching for 2 years, and then now you just minted. But and all those times, I'm guessing you can relate that time is just, it feels like it moves really quickly, but also feels like it's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely like that. So it's experience a lot. So I never ever made so much contact or I had so connected to so many artists and people in general in such a short time. So I'm not such a super active networker. I'm not an introvert or so, not liking to go out and meeting people, but I'm just not a super crazy networker. That's just it. And since I'm active in the community, it's crazy how easy it is to connect to other fantastic artists, and also some people I admired for years. And I know some people who I follow for years, and suddenly they kind of drop into your DMs and are like, "Hey, I saw you were active in the scene. Can you probably answer some questions? I love your work, and I saw you're on that platform. Can you recommend the platform?" They invited me or so, and I'm like, "What the fuck is this guy dropping into my DMs?" It's like I don't know. He's someone I'm admiring for years. Because like there's no hierarchy, you know, everyone's starting at the same point, and but all this stuff, of course, is intense and very, very consuming, I guess. So yeah, that's what I think makes the time run by so fast and makes it feel like it has so much is happening, and also creates this kind of FOMO, like you go to vacation for 2 weeks and you think like you missed all the crazy shit going on in the world, you know.
Yeah, well, I did in fact slide in your DMs, but I'll touch on that a bit later. But I know you were saying that you did freelance, and obviously, like being a talented artist, I had a question. Obviously, if you're working and doing freelance, you'll be working towards deadlines set by whoever you're working for. I know you've worked for Adidas, Adobe, Kia, some really like big brands. Do you feel that having to work to a deadline can sometimes like infringe on your creativity? Like you feel like you kind of rushing to get it out as opposed to being just let to run all your creative talent flow?
I have to just 1 second say I'm an American, and there might be American listeners. We pronounce it Adidas, but I don't know what the right answer is.
So yeah, it's a German brand, of course, and in Germany we say Adidas. So that's, I think, that would be probably the correct way to say it. But I think that's
okay.
that's fine.
I'm gonna say it on the streets of New York, and I'll tell you all the looks I get.
Yeah, yeah. Please record some reactions there. So yeah, I guess they probably themselves say Adidas in the English speaking countries, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's working for these brands is great, but I got to say it's I mean, you have to name drop a little bit as an artist or as a creative freelancer in general. Name dropping is part of the game, but I got to say that working for smaller clients or even startups with smaller budgets, of course, but also like smaller budget, but higher. Sometimes the higher acceptance of like your creative input has been also great. So I couldn't even say that working for big brands is better than for small brands or NGOs or whatever. So, and I'm usually I'm just trying to remember what your question was, but I think where you were heading with it was like that I always trying to find the balance between my personal projects and freelance projects, because freelance projects usually earn the money. I mean, especially before NFTs, of course, but still. So that's my kind of basic income where I pay my rent from and where I make a living from. And personal projects is where I try to keep like keep my mind sane and do the things I love. And I think finding this balance is really important to me. So it's not always working out, because you sometimes have like the dollar signs in your eyes when someone comes and pays you good money for an illustration, and you're like, oh damn, the deadline is really harsh, but okay, I'm doing it. But yeah, doesn't that answer your question, Mens?
Yeah, totally. Thank you. And now we know that it is Adidas, so we're both right there, Stefan. And obviously with
You said it wrong. Adidas.
Oh no, you've converted right. I'm out. Podcast now.
So on that topic though, I do love that that like internal battle that I think we all have in our own ways. Like whether you're an artist or not, like we all have our dreams of like what we want, how we want to spend our time, and how we want to make our money. And unfortunately, that when big brands are involved, your mission or how you want to do it may not always align with it. Like for a good example is these major brands want you to do this kind of piece, and that's not really your personal mission or what you want to do, and that's why you have to do your own personal your personal art, right? Your personal projects. And I've related to this because the only way I can relate is I used to play basketball, and I remember wanting to play basketball a certain way because this was how it was fun for me. But you know, the professional teams wanted me to play a certain way, so I had to play the way I wanted to play for fun, personally, on my side time, and I had to kind of do this other way to kind of pay the bills. And I think we can all relate to that in a way. So I guess I wanted to point that out.
Hello?
I wanted to ask. Yeah?
I may just have dropped out here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. We could hear you. Can you hear us now?
My headset just does weird things. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are again. Okay. That was weird. My headset just kind of stopped working. I'm sorry.
Well, you can hear us now.
Yeah, it's working again.
Welcome back. I guess I was saying this really long-winded rant, but really I just wanted to ask you what your thoughts were, or I wanted to ask you to speak about that internal struggle of, like, I guess not being able to always do what you want, I guess, for these bigger companies, and then maybe doing these things on the side for yourself.
Yeah, I wish I had heard that, but that's still a good question. Yeah, it's so of course you have a certain kind of idealism when you start out as an artist, and when you come, especially when you're at a university, and you at university you're doing a lot of personal projects. I mean, almost all the time, you know, and of course you want to keep up with that. And I think one of the biggest challenges for young artists is to start into the business and then have this challenge of, yeah, no, it's not all like, it's not only making stuff you love, and you get input and you get briefings. And I think I'm quite rational with that. So I think it's just like a job, like any other job, and you have to accept that I think there's probably no job in the world where you can always do what you want. Even if you're kind of Elon Musk, you have to kind of pay attention to stuff, right? And I think that you have to accept that. And then for me, that's, of course, everyone has to kind of find this sweet spot themselves. But for me, I realized that even if I couldn't do my thing 100% of my time, I can do it probably 30 or 80%, 70 or 80% of my time, and that's really a lot of like a big part of my day, you know. And I usually love what I do, and I'm trying to get as much freedom as I can in my client projects. But depending on the client and depending on the project, it is not always possible. But I also got to say it has been worse than now, of course, because when starting out, you have to accept a lot more jobs where you have like a negative or not such a good gut feeling, where you think probably this is a client that isn't really. The worst thing actually are clients who do not know what they want, and who do not deal with your style, and who do not look into your style and match it to their needs, because they do not really know their needs. That's the biggest issue I experience. And I have now the privilege, or maybe it's not even a privilege, it's more like I worked hard to get there, to be able to say no to such requests. So whenever I have the feeling that a client comes in where I think like they want to push me into a direction style-wise or in the meaning of my art that I can't really, or that I don't feel comfortable with, I just can't say no. But it's, of course, a situation that many do not have because they need the money. I can say, I mean, it's I don't want to brag, but it is just like that. I get job requests like, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 a week. So I can, from these 3 or 4 a week, that's maybe 7 or 6 to 8 in 2 weeks or so. In these 2 weeks, I pick probably one of these that I think fits my style the best. And that's, of course, paid in a good way, because, of course, payment is important as well. Maybe I try to find the best balance between payment and what I have to do, and that I agree to do. And the other 7 or 6 or whatever, I have to tell, I'm sorry, but you have to go somewhere else, which is fantastic for me, of course. But yeah, it's hard work to get there.
I love that question and that answer, because I think it's, even if you're not an artist, I think that's relatable. When people reach out to others, I think they should research a little bit about who they're reaching out to, because I think that does a lot, right? It needs to be a right fit. And saying no is such a relatable thing as well, because it's just hard, because you're kind of setting up boundaries in your own way. So I love it, because even though I'm not an artist, I can relate to you so much. But I think Mens has a question now.
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously, you've put that much work in, and you've put yourself in a position from your own hard work where you can set them boundaries and like turn down things that you don't need to do just because you like you say, you want to maybe work on your personal things. And I think it just shows the effort that you've put in. And I know recently you've taken a break, and I just wondered if that helped with obviously taking a break from something that you're passionate about and you do every day. Did you find when you came back from the break that you took that you were a lot more creative and had like any kind of new drive for pursuing your personal projects?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned it, because it was just really the exact opposite, and it's I'm used to that. It's kind of interesting, and I'm trying to analyze myself there as well, because when I come back from a break, I usually have a bit of a hard time to get back into my routine again. By now, I mean, nowadays I know that it is this way, but it's not always. Or like earlier, I was surprised by that, and also kind of confused and frightened, because when you work, when you're a creative worker, you depend on your ideas and your creative passion and drive, and if that's kind of not there, it's it's not such a good feeling. But I expected it when I got back. So I've been to Spain for a week, in the Basque Country, and then I came back, did some work, and just for a short period of time, some to meet some deadlines, and then I went to Portugal with my wife for 2 weeks and came back, and then took 2 weeks where I just chilled at home and played Elden Ring, actually. So that's kind of 4 to 5 weeks in total that I wasn't working, or was hardly working, and it felt really, really difficult to get into this routine. Like, I had 2 jobs back then that I agreed to do when I came back, and I had that was really nice. I had the opportunity to push these back to end of July. So I'm working on these right now, because the clients didn't have like tight deadlines, so I could push them a bit. And that was nice, of course. And I feel like the brain is kind of rearranging when I give it this space or this time to think about other stuff than art. So whenever I have these periods of really crunch time where I just push and push and push, I have no problem of coming up with ideas. I have the problem that I have too many ideas, so I write down everything and just really take a lot of notes. And in these crunch time phases, it's exhausting, but I still manage to do it, and it's fine. It's fun to me as well, so it's okay. But then the brain kind of settles down in these pause periods, and I feel like kind of the brain juices kind of rearrange. That the brain is kind of working with all the input it got the month before, and kind of processes this whole stuff that this input is. And that's always a crazy experience. I mean, I'm not taking such long breaks that often, so I just sat down and wanted to work, and was like, if I had to do something, I would do it. It is okay. I mean, it's just a job. I have to just I have to just do my job like anyone else as well. But as I had the free time, I just sat here and was like, okay, I want to do something, but somehow it's not really. There's some kind of thing holding back, and that's when I started the Singing Doors series, because I took a lot of inspiration. I read a couple of comics. I surfed on Pinterest really, really much and collected some inspiration. And I felt like to get back to the routine, I had to start something completely personal and free, and not directly with a client project. So I made the Singing Doors project, which is dropping on Solana on Form Function next week. Of course, I mean, that's also me. It's just a fun project, and in the end, it ends up to be a NFT drop. So always business. But and that helped me to get back. So I'm back on track now, and it's been really great to have this more free, little different. Like, it's a bit different in style as well. So without any pressure, made without any pressure. So that helped me to get back.
I love that you shared that, because I can relate to that in a lot of ways. I think we all can, as far as how I think we all know that the value of taking breaks, especially when we feel passionate about something, unplugging is kind of hard. So to pull yourself away, sometimes it's just it requires a lot of like conscious effort to do that. And then on top of that, coming back and just kind of getting back into the speed of things how you were before is also hard. But I think we all agree that it is very positive and good for us. So I love that you sharing that, because it seems like many of us, we kind of struggle with those things, even though we know we should. I did want to ask you then, because I love how you shared how you kind of came up with gradually your new project. How would you recommend, or what would you answer to somebody if they asked you, like, how can I get better at like feeling inspired or finding the art in my life, or being more creative in general? Because it sounds like you have a certain way of doing it.
Yeah, so I think the creative process is really something you can break down to clear steps, or to clear parts of the process. So I don't think it's any kind of magic that happens there. So some people tend to make some kind of magic out of the creative process and out of illustration. And I think the results, the artworks that come out of it, can have a kind of magic and can translate this magic. But I think the process itself and finding ideas and stuff, I think you can. I like to kind of, I don't know. I kind of like to put a rational view on that, because I think it helps young artists and beginners to not set themselves under such pressure. Like, I'm not a creative person, I can't do this, or I don't have ideas. I can make art or something, because I think everyone can do it. You just have to find the right strategy for you. And for me, that is, as I just mentioned before with the Singing Doors project, I have been getting a lot of input on Pinterest. I just love Pinterest. It's just one of my favorite things to use in my in my everyday process, because I have a lot of Pinterest boards and I just collect stuff that I see on the web. So that's, first of all, that's of course photography from nice places in the world, or people, or whatever. And second, that it is the work of other artists that I just like to analyze and just look at for a long time, just to see, like, sometimes even like scribbling down their composition to see how they did it. I think that's something that beginners should do absolutely. So something that everyone should practice. But even after years and years of doing this, I still like to do it. Not so much scribbling down, because I can now do it with my eyes and with my brain, But yeah, just looking at stuff and see what works and what works not, and what makes something really working as an image. What kind of, you feel an emotion, like Mansi were describing the nostalgia you were getting from my art. So I see other art that also creates this kind of nostalgia or whatever, and I'm thinking about, like, what is it in this image that creates this? And then the inspiration comes from just automatically. It's just like it just happens on the go. You don't have to squeeze it out somewhere. It's just like by looking at this stuff, it just comes. And the same is with just taking walks and looking at things that you like in your neighborhood, or in maybe just some traveling and looking at other cities. So, for example, in the Basque Country, on my travels, I was in Vitoria and in Bilbao, and I just didn't have I just didn't put a marker on the map. I just went out of my Airbnb in the morning and started walking, taking photos and scribbles, and I just walked. And when there was like a crossroads left and right, I just, okay, this on the right, this looks interesting, I just go right. And that's also inspiration. And I think it just, you can push it too hard. But of course, when you are a freelancer, you sometimes have to have ideas, and these there's strategies like, for example, I have some go-to subjects in my art that always work, and we see it in the singing doors as well. So architecture for me always works. I can always get inspired by architecture. So I sit there and think, I'm just having a lack of ideas, or I don't feel kind of motivated to do something. I just look at some cool houses and scribble down some house facades and some doors. And you can have that with, I don't know, plants or cars or some kind of fantasy stuff or characters. Or you can watch a movie and just take some screenshots of some scenes you really think that are working out composition-wise, and you just scribble down the scenes and analyze them, and the inspiration will come. So that's kind of my technique or my strategy to stay inspired, I guess.
Yeah, thanks. Great like tips and great just like insight into you. And I think that's the main thing about like creating things. You can't force the process. You've got to find like inspirations from things that like are in your life, so to speak. Like you say, going for walks or like reliving things that you liked in your childhood. And this is where I was going to touch on. I know you said about I'd actually seen the Singing Doors piece, and when I first saw it, it did like it create like some nostalgia in me. But it was a place I've never seen, don't even recognise. But reading more into like the thought process, the creative process behind Singing Doors, obviously you put the thread up, describing the process, and I realised where I was getting the nostalgia from. I think because I know you said that one of your inspirations was Asterix comics, and I actually remember reading them when I was a child. My uncle was really into like comics, manga. He had all the Judge Dredd comic books, the Akira ones, but he also had the Asterix. And obviously, if you've got inspiration from that, that's gone into that piece, and I think that's where I've drawn the nostalgia from, is where you were inspired from, which I thought was amazing. But I know as well, a lot of your colours are like purples and reds, and you're also into cyberpunk. And I just wondered why you were so drawn to like the purple and red kind of palettes. Is there any like background towards that?
I love how we mentioned the purple, and look at my heart. Purple. I love purple. Go ahead.
Yeah, purple is just a great color. So that's kind of the short answer. The funny thing is that I experimented with this color a while ago, and I just loved how everything came out quite unique. So I mean, I think you can recognize my style or I hope you can recognize my style in a lot of colors, but I think, or I felt like giving it a certain color kind of even gave it more of a branding aspect. So it had even more of my style in it, and I just loved it. I thought it looked cool. Purple is a color that isn't really existing a lot in nature. So there's not so many purple objects in nature, and I found it a funny challenge to make. I don't know, for example, the sushi plate. If you buy sushi, you won't find a lot of purple there in the bento, you know. And I just made a complete purple sushi bento, and just to try like.
I feel like if I saw purple in my sushi, somebody would be getting yelled at.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you probably shouldn't eat it. I mean, you should probably eat any food that is should not probably eat any food that is purple. You know, I mean, some plums probably, but there's not so many. Some grapes are a bit of purple. I saw in Portugal, I saw a tree that had fantastic, really, really beautiful purple leaves. And you know what? I just included that into my second piece for the singing doors. So I will show that to you very soon. It's right now it's only exclusive to see on my Patreon, but it will be revealed very soon. So there's a purple tree. Yeah, so that's and I find it from a business aspect. I also find it interesting because it's kind of a branding thing. So I don't paint everything purple. I do. I probably should, because it would be even more recognizable. But it would be too boring for me. So I like to be entertained, and that's why I also have like the cyberpunk stuff that I draw. Then I have this more mellow, positive vibe. These houses, the curious cabins, and some of these, like the singing doors. Also, this kind of nostalgic, very, very peaceful, very, very like that. These pieces that contain some kind of very calm and relaxed storytelling. So yeah, that's the same with colors. But yeah, I call myself president of purple now because I think it's a nice branding thing that people recognize me by.
I'll vote for you. Don't worry. When it comes to purple, I'll vote for a lot of things that are purple. I wanted to ask too on the topic of branding. I guess right. I have a lot of opinions when it comes to branding, and also like aliases and how people. A lot of interest really on how people choose to present themselves online, because it is kind of like become like a public forum where a lot of people are hanging out. And when we spoke like briefly before we did this, you kind of mentioned how you have your name on Twitter, but you also have an alias on Instagram, and you know, you've probably lived in both. You've experienced both, like being, I guess, docs, but versus being like an alias. And I kind of wanted to hear your opinions on all of that.
Yeah, I think as an artist who I mean, you can't avoid being active on social media as an artist these days, I guess. So there are a couple of artists who are kind of these guys that are well known in the agencies and who are like illustrating New Yorker covers and stuff like that. So that they don't need kind of social media appearance. They're just appearing in mailings, and everyone knows these guys, and they have like agents working for them. But apart from that, every artist just should, in my opinion, should be putting at least a couple of hours each week or month into social media, because it's just your way of letting people know about your work. And branding is a part of that. So yeah, my aliases or my names on Twitter and Instagram aren't even a good example, because I have different names there. I wish I had the same, but I haven't. But I'm just thinking about making a logo for myself, actually. So it's just something that wanders around my mind right now, but I have to figure out what I want there. And because
Oh, you're in luck. Mence just discovered Canva.
I was going to say, I mean,
he made our logo.
I was going to say, you might have like 10 years of digital artistry background, but I have actually got 2-3 weeks of Canva. So you want a logo, I'll knock you it up. 28th we'll go.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Maybe you come up with a nice concept, because you have like a very fresh approach to it, without like the burden of years and years of experience on your shoulders. I'm sorry, but I was just thinking about it like a child working
I'm so interested.
a
You're
design.
probably right.
Yeah, maybe we should make a project out of this. So no, but to be serious, I mean, branding is really important to be recognized. There's so many there's so many people wanting to sell their work around, and I'm pretty sure there's a space and there's a spot for everyone to be successful. But you you have to get some basics right with it. With what I think is branding definitely is a part of. So yeah, let's do that logo.
I've already half concocted it, so yeah, you can give me like a few little pointers and it'll be sorted. But I know we were talking obviously like about nostalgia within with the piece that we were talking about earlier, but I know you've also got a project called Shroom Heads, and that's actually like it's like story driven, art focused project, which I really like. And it's got like the story is done by Rick Galbraith, I believe. And like, what did you find? I know obviously he's a really good storyteller, but do you find like you read a lot and that helps with like the art as well, or what was the like thought process behind starting Shroom Heads?
Yeah, with Shroom Heads is I have to add that it is a spin-off project from a project called Cycle of the Shroom. So, and I remember early 2021, I was working on a cyberpunk project with like the goal of having probably kind of an art book or some kind of, I wanted to make some kind of product out of it, maybe a comic or so, or not really a comic because I'm not a comic artist, but some kind of mix of art book and graphic novel or something. And Rick saw my work, and he reached out to me and asking if I wanted to ever probably work together with him. And after a while and some chatting, I decided to give it a shot. And yeah, we agreed to. I mean, I actually sent him just 2 pages probably of bullet points with ideas I had for this project, with just some thoughts on how this world would probably line up and look like. And yeah, he took it, and he totally blew me away, because he was like, "Hey, give me some days, and I'll come back with some kind of intro or prologue." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, knock yourself out. Just have a look at what you can do there." And he came back with a prologue, and he wrote such a nice story, really long story as well. I mean, not a book or something, but like a nice short story. And I was really surprised by the quality, and what he made out of my confused bullet points. And then I took this story and made an artwork out of it. Like the story was a little bit about a character, so I made the character, or I put the character in this artwork, and we called it Cycle of the Shroom Prologue, and sold it on Super Rare back then, and just like split the income, and then the story was part of the NFT. So it's not only the animation, but also the NFT. And we did now, I think, four chapters of this, like every time a short story and one animation, which is really fun. And then when the PFP craze started to grow last year, and we already had a couple of characters appearing in these stories that I liked, we've been just discussing the possibility of making a short or a small PFP collection with handmade characters, and to kind of that would live in these characters that will live in the world we were building. So to give this world kind of some context and some people to run around in the city we were describing there, and yeah, that's what Shroomettes is, and it's a lot of work. So our crazy plan was to make 100 hand-drawn characters, and I mean, you know my style, and you see the characters, they are quite detailed. So I think 50 are done now, so just halfway through, and 50 are still about to be made. But it's fun, but it's also really a long-term project because it just takes time. I want to take my time. I don't want to rush things. So let others do the quick cash grabs. We're really, I hate to say it because it's you hear it often, but we're building long-term. we're here for the long run, and but we really do. So yeah, we'll see where it goes.
I definitely agree. I think that when you rush things, you kind of will end up regretting it anyway. Like if you do it at the pace that you naturally feel like you need to do it or you want to do it, then you're probably more proud of it in the long term. You've done a lot of awesome things, and you've worked with big names, and you've also you've learned a lot. Like you said, you've been in the industry for a while. So I wanted to ask you a question that I think can relate to anyone, and because you have experience some levels of success, I think that you might have an interesting answer to this. So I would ask, what's your experience with failure, and how would you advise someone who maybe just recently had an experience with failure?
I think failure is a very, very central part of the creative process. So it's something that isn't. I think failure is even a term that I don't like in this context, because it's not something bad that happens. It's just something that occurs in your process, and then failure has such a negative connotation. While I think that experimentation and like reaching a dead end and turning back and searching for another solution is just such a central part of creative work, not only art but also design and music and whatnot. I mean, I'm not a musician, but I guess it's the same with music as well. And it's really, really important that to experiment and to accept that a lot of experiments will turn out shit, and to just go back and look for another way to find your to find what you are trying to achieve. So that's that, of course. I mean, that's the kind of failure that is like an everyday thing. From the smallest, like you could even go like really, really into the macro view and look at like drawing something. I mean, come into one of my Twitch and YouTube streams and see how much or how many lines I draw and undo. You know, it's also little failures all the time.
How valuable is that undo button?
Yeah, it is very much, because that's one of the reasons I'm working 100% digital now. So I started with drawing on paper. I think everyone should start with a sketchbook and a cheap pencil, or cheap like ballpoint pen or so. But at some point, I just switched over to a complete digital process, and I love it, because I think I remember even like drawing something in my sketchbook when I was traveling, and I was like, in my mind I was hitting like the Control Z. It didn't work, obviously. So
I can relate to that. When you do something enough times, I spend a lot of time on Twitter Spaces, and I when I'm talking to someone in real life, I want to like give the laughing emoji reaction. I totally understand.
Yeah, it's just it's also just little small failures. But of course, there's also bigger fuck ups that happen. I mean, client projects that you kind of, that kind of goes sideways, and you have an output that isn't satisfying for you nor the client. In the worst case, sometimes it's that you can hold a deadline or so. That's of course also stuff that probably needs to happen to you to make you better freelancer, better creative. Even working with a really bad and annoying client is maybe everyone has to go through that to be better and to be better at trusting your gut when it comes to reading a briefing and evaluating if this is something you want to work on or not. It's all about making experiments and analyzing the outcomes and making it better next time. But I think I have a very relaxed view to that, to be honest.
Yeah, I know you. I've been inspired just by seeing the art in the scene myself. I even bought like an art tablet. It was a Huon one, and I still draw on it now and again. Obviously, it won't be anything on the levels that you use, but I think there's a lot of inspiration in the space. And I know you said you were like humbled earlier when people who you had looked up to in the space had essentially like messaged you and asked to like reached out and wanted to know more about you. But is there anybody that you like? Is it still inspires within the space? And is there any like pieces that you collect personally from artists that you like?
Yeah, I sometimes do collect pieces. I just I think this week or last week I collected something from Jesse. We were just having a chat, so that's probably the reason he just pops to my mind. So it's Jay. He's an artist from the UK. He's very nice, and I bought something from him. And yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people who inspire me all the time. It's you can basically go through who I follow on Twitter or on Instagram, and then, I mean they're not all artists, but those who are artists are most likely guys who inspire me just constantly. That's and who I want to probably have collected from. Most of them I want to, but they're too expensive. But yeah, I collected some stuff as well.
But on the flip side of that, when we talked a little bit, you kind of mentioned how you kind of touched briefly on how you kind of enjoy speaking to non-artists. And I wanted to ask you about that because I took it as there's a value in like maybe getting out of your echo chamber and like experiencing other things, but maybe there isn't. And I kind of wanted to ask you about that. Like, what did you mean by you enjoy speaking to non-artists sometimes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I enjoyed talking to everyone. So, but in interviews, it's sometimes with people who are either from other creative disciplines, like designers talking to artists or musicians or so, or even people like you who are who have a completely different profession. The type of questions is sometimes really different. I mean, the questions can of course be a bit more basic, so you talk about stuff that artists won't ask each other because it's obvious, but I like that because it makes you think about stuff that you kind of in your mind had that were like automatisms that you didn't think about anymore, that you kind of question again, or that you reflect once again after a while. So that's one thing I really like. And the questions can be really naive. So it can be just really basic stuff. And I have the same, for example, when I stream, and people can ask questions when I stream and just put them in the chat. And I just prefer to really draw and talk all the time while I do it, and just explain my process. And sometimes there's total art beginners, for example, or even people in the chat or watching that are not artists at all. And they ask you about your process, and you explain what you do there. And while explaining it, I often have this feeling of, that's right, I'm doing this like automatically, but I never really thought about it. And now by explaining it in detail, I look behind the process and learn more about my own style as well. And I think that helps me, for example, with teaching. So I love making tutorials. I'm going to have a workshop in I think in 2 weeks where I have like an hour workshop, just a short thing, where I teach about isometric art. And by people giving me these questions and asking about my process, I reflect myself much more, which I think is just something that helps me a lot.
Yeah, I think anything that's like essentially creating inclusivity and getting people into the scene as well, especially if like art beginners, it helps the scene in general. Obviously, it gets more people in, it gets more people interested, and it gets more people to be able to showcase their art. And obviously,
what is going on in their background?
let me. It's
yeah, that sounds like you're sitting at a.
Seagulls.
Are you sitting at a beach or something?
No, literally.
Must be nice.
But yeah, like as more, obviously you're helping onboard artists into the scene with like your workshops and just being like as easy to talk to as you are, and very open about like what you do and the thought process behind your things. But as more and more people come into the scene, where would you like to where do you see the scene heading like in the next couple of years in terms of like arts and like projects?
Yeah, I wish I had a solid forecast for that. It's so hard to tell. So one thing that we all built in the last month and that won't be teared down again so quickly is the connections and the communities we all have. So I think, I mean, you see it even now where the market is a bit slower and the crypto prices went down. I mean, it went up again a bit, but in the last days. But you know, who knows? I mean, we had that kind of crash, and you see people not being that active anymore suddenly, and you realize that they are kind of demotivated by things going on. That's not me, but I can understand everyone doing so. But I think that the core people, and it's really like the critical mass is definitely there, even though everyone is still telling we are early. I think there's kind of a critical mass of people that is active and that is building communities and projects. So I think it's really it's everything is kind of here to stay in one way or the other. But I can't. That's kind of the German rationalist coming through here. So I'm not I don't like
finds a way out somehow, right?
Yeah, it is, and that's why, and that's the reason why I just can't help but not be one of the positive guys who are always like kind of we're early and we're everything is going to moon and everything is going to like the market is going to explode. So I'm very, very realistic there, and I think it can go all ways. But what will definitely live and what will definitely be existing in a couple of years is the communities and the connections, which is great. So, and the rest we will see. I think there will come a lot of new NFT use cases as well, and what happens with the art community within NFTs, we will see as well. I'm pretty positive that it will find a way or another. If the PFP craze will live up again, I don't know. But yeah, I'm just really curious and staying flexible. You know, staying like. Or keeping like a mindset where I can make my moves and react to things happening, and it's just a lot of fun. So looking forward to whatever will come next.
Looking forward to it. You're positive that we're going to figure it out. The rational realist in you is don't. It's dangerous. Don't say it too much because you might get in trouble with your rational realist in you. I'm just messing with you. I have
yeah, they are fighting in my brain right now. No, it's you know, I'm like I'm always like kind of skeptic with new stuff, in a way that it's not like that I'm not like to try things or so. But for example, if someone brings up a project or comes to me with something new and it's like, hey, this is the new big thing, and you have to do this and you have to do that, I'm always kind of a bit of a skeptic and try to analyze and really be rational about things. So and people told me that I lack a bit of enthusiasm sometimes. So, but that doesn't mean I can look into the future in a very positive way.
Yeah, I was just going to really quickly follow up on that. I know, obviously, you do the freelance work for like big brands and stuff, but did they ever ask about? Obviously, they'll have discovered you through your personal art, I'm assuming, but have they ever like asked you about like NFTs and stuff like that in terms of maybe like bigger brands onboarding into the Web3 space?
Yeah, they did actually. They did. I have just been on a project with Sony Music actually, so I think that could be considered as a big brand. And I have been working with them, and there will be something coming out in September that I made with them. So, and apart from that, there's sometimes you have these people from brands who you have a meeting and they see that you're also into NFTs, and they're like, "Oh, I saw you were into NFTs, and what's that about?" And we were discussing that as well, but we're not sure. So you kind of realize that they're having internal processes going on, and kind of like more or less, but they hear about it, they have an eye on it. And of course, I mean, Adidas, for example, are they had a very popular drop, so they are totally into it. Although my work for them wasn't, that was just for a digital campaign. There was nothing NFT related.
So we've just confirmed that Adidas are in fact the gens.
Oh, I have no doubt, actually. But
they're what?
Degens.
Oh yeah. I think so. Yeah, I would say so.
I know we got to wrap up soon because we're on the hour now. But I got something fun. Just yesterday, I was having a little debate. No, yesterday, I don't know anymore. Recently, I had a debate with some friends about this, and because I'm not an artist, we had fun talking about this. But you are not only an artist by trade, but also you probably identify as an artist. So I am really curious about your thoughts on this philosophical, no answer question. Really, it's kind of a debate. But the question is, if someone creates art, but it's never shared with anyone else, is it still art?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, well, he who or they who make the art consume it as well, right? So I see myself as a consumer of my own art as well. So I would say yes.
I love that. But yeah, obviously we're coming up now. Well, I guess we'll start wrapping up. But if there's anything you want to share, you could share all your socials as well. And I'd just like to say it's really great meeting you. And you are, in fact, the second German artist we've had. So there must be something in the water in Germany that's just creating all these super talented artists.
Yeah, I still have to listen to the podcast with who did you have on?
Everfresh.
Yeah, Everfresh. Sure. I just have to listen to the podcast with Everfresh to hear what he has to say, and if we have some German similarities there. So yeah. I guess I appreciate your questions. I think I shared a lot of insights there, and if anyone wants to see more, just have a look at my social link collection. Sharing more on YouTube, for example, all the time, and my Instagram, Twitter, Patreon, of course. So yeah, it was great being here.